Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide window of Unity Prime Station, watching the stars spin slowly past. The massive orbital platform floated in empty space, halfway between Earth and the nearest alien world. It had been built as a symbol of cooperation between humans and the other species in the galaxy. Now it felt more like a prison. Behind him, the conference room buzzed with nervous energy. 23 human diplomats sat around the curved table, all of them knowing that today would change everything. They had been fighting for 15 years to get fair treatment from the Galactic Federation. Today, they would learn if their efforts had been worth anything. Lieutenant Amy Carter walked up to Morrison, her tablet glowing with the latest reports. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and eyes that still held hope. Morrison envied her that hope. At 52, he had seen too much to believe in easy solutions. "Sir, the Federation Council is ready to begin," she said quietly. "All 847 member species have representatives present." Morrison nodded and turned away from the window. Through the glass walls of the conference room, he could see the massive chamber where the Federation Council met. It was shaped like a bowl, with thousands of seats arranged in circles. At the center sat the High Council, made up of the 5 most powerful species in the galaxy. The Zelethi Empire controlled the largest number of star systems. Their representatives looked like walking crystals, tall and sharp, with voices that sounded like wind chimes. The Vorthic Collective was the most technologically advanced, with bodies that seemed to be part machine and part flesh. The other 3 species were smaller, but still far more influential than humanity. "Time to go," Morrison said. The human delegation walked through the corridors of Unity Prime. The station was huge, big enough to hold 1 million people. Right now, it housed representatives from nearly every intelligent species in the galaxy. As they passed other groups, Morrison noticed how the aliens looked at them. Some with pity, others with amusement, most with indifference. The conference chamber was even more impressive up close. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with displays showing star maps, trade routes, and military positions. In the center, a holographic display showed the entire galaxy, with different colors marking the territories of each species. Humanity's territory was marked in pale blue. It was tiny compared to the vast red of the Zelethi Empire or the purple of the Vorthic Collective. Earth and its 23 colonies looked like dots on the edge of nowhere. High Counselor Zethkari of the Zelethi Empire called the session to order. His crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly to every corner of the vast room. "Today we address the petition of the human species," he announced. "They request modification of current trade agreements, reduction of colonial taxes, and expanded military transit rights." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. They had requested much more than that. They had asked for equal treatment. They had asked for respect. They had asked to be treated as partners instead of children. The debate that followed was painful to watch. One by one, the Federation's member species spoke about humanity's petition. Most of them barely pretended to consider it seriously. The Raxian delegate, a creature that looked like a giant insect, chittered about how humans were too aggressive and not ready for expanded responsibilities. The Thylorian representative, speaking through a translation device, worried that giving humans more rights would upset the natural order of things. The Vorthic Collective spokesman was more direct. "Humanity has been part of the Federation for only 2 centuries, he said, his mechanical voice echoing in the chamber. "Other species have been members for thousands of years. They must learn patience." Amy Carter leaned close to Morrison. "Sir, they're not even listening to our arguments." Morrison watched as speaker after speaker dismissed human concerns. The pattern was always the same. Humanity was too young, too aggressive, too eager. They needed to learn their place. They needed to wait their turn. The worst part was that Morrison knew humans had already proven themselves. Human scientists had made breakthrough discoveries that benefited the entire galaxy. Human engineers had built some of the Federation's most important installations. Human soldiers had fought and died defending Federation worlds from pirates and raiders. None of it mattered. To the Federation, humans were still the new kids who needed to sit quietly and wait for the adults to make decisions. The final insult came when the vote was called on the Proxima Sector mining rights. Humanity had discovered the rich asteroid fields around Proxima Centauri. Human miners had spent decades developing the resources there. Human companies had built the infrastructure that made the mining possible, but the Federation Council had decided that such valuable resources shouldn't be controlled by such a young and inexperienced species. They were transferring the mining rights to a consortium controlled by the Zelethi Empire. Morrison stood up when his turn came to speak. The chamber fell silent as thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. He had prepared a long speech about fairness and cooperation, about how humanity deserved better treatment, about how the Federation was making a mistake. Instead, he kept it simple. For 15 years, we have asked for nothing more than fair treatment, he said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's sound system. We have contributed to this Federation in every way we could. We have followed every rule, respected every tradition, and honored every agreement. He paused, looking around the vast chamber. And for 15 years, you have told us to wait. Wait for acceptance. Wait for respect. Wait for the rights that every other species takes for granted. High Counselor Zethkaria's crystalline form shifted slightly. Captain Morrison, the Federation, appreciates humanity's contributions. But wisdom comes with age. Your species must learn patience. Morrison felt something cold settle in his chest. And if we choose not to wait? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several alien delegates made sounds that might have been laughter. Zethkari's voice took on a mocking tone. Then you are free to leave, Captain. The galaxy managed quite well without humanity for millions of years. It will continue to do so. The chamber erupted in what passed for laughter among the various species. Chittering, buzzing, and mechanical sounds filled the air. Morrison stood perfectly still, feeling the weight of every mocking sound. Then the laughter died away, and the chamber fell silent. Morrison was still standing, but something had changed in his posture. Amy Carter noticed it first, the way his shoulders had straightened, the way his eyes had gone cold and distant. Very well, Counselor, Morrison said quietly. Humanity accepts your suggestion. The words were simple, but they carried across the chamber like a physical blow. The alien delegates looked confused. A few of them started to ask questions, but Morrison was already moving. He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The human delegation followed him, their faces showing the same mixture of shock and determination that their captain displayed. Amy Carter caught up with him as they reached the corridor. Sir, what did you mean back there? Morrison kept walking, his pace steady and purposeful. We're going home, Amy, all of us. And we're not coming back. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them back to Earth, Amy looked back at Unity Prime Station. It still looked like a symbol of cooperation, but now it felt more like a monument to missed opportunities. The shuttle's engines came to life, and they began the long journey home. Behind them, the Federation Council was still in session, probably already moving on to other business. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Morrison stared out the shuttle's window at the stars. Already planning humanity's next move. The Federation had just taught them a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best response to rejection was to walk away and never look back. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison walked out of the Federation Council chambers. At first, the alien governments thought it was just another human tantrum. They expected the humans to come back within a few weeks, apologizing and begging for forgiveness. They were wrong. Kethven stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, looking out at the empty docking bays. The Vorthik merchant had built his fortune on trade with human colonies. Every day, dozens of human freighters would arrive carrying exotic goods from Earth's worlds. Rare spices, advanced electronics, medical supplies, and entertainment systems. That had become popular throughout the galaxy. Now, the docking bays stood empty. The last human ship had left 3 months ago, and no new ones had arrived. The massive cargo holds that once buzzed with activity were dark and silent. "Sir," his assistant buzzed through the translation device, "the Terran Shipping Company has officially canceled all their contracts. They're not coming back." Catherine's mechanical limbs clicked nervously. "What about the others?" "Surely some human companies will honor their agreements." "No, sir. Every human business has shut down. They're all leaving Federation space." On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Patricia Wells packed the last of her equipment into shipping containers. The Kepler Station Medical Research Facility had been her life's work. For 20 years, she had led the galaxy's most advanced medical research team, finding cures for diseases that had plagued dozens of species. Her Zealoty colleagues gathered around her, their crystalline forms shimmering with distress. "Dr. Wells, please reconsider," the lead researcher pleaded. "The cancer research project is so close to completion. Without your expertise, we cannot continue." Patricia sealed the final container and looked around the laboratory one last time. "I'm sorry, Zethmer. My contract was with the Federation. Earth is no longer a member." "But surely you can stay as an individual," another researcher said. "We can offer you citizenship in the Zealoty Empire." Patricia shook her head. "I'm going home. We all are." The scene was repeated thousands of times across Federation space. Human doctors, engineers, teachers, and researchers all received the same message from Earth: come home. Every human business, every research station, every mining operation, every trading post, all of them were closing down. The withdrawal wasn't chaotic or angry. It was methodical and complete. Humans packed their belongings, settled their debts, and left quietly. They didn't destroy anything or steal anything. They simply took what was theirs and disappeared. On Earth, President Daniel Hayes stood before the cameras in the Oval Office. The weight of the decision showed in his face, but his voice was steady and calm. "My fellow humans," he began, "for 2 centuries we have sought acceptance from the Galactic Federation. We have tried to prove ourselves worthy of respect and equal treatment. We have contributed our knowledge, our resources, and our lives to the common good of galactic civilization." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Today I announce that those efforts have ended. The Federation has made it clear that they view us as children who must wait for permission to participate in galactic affairs. We reject this position." The broadcast was being watched by humans throughout the galaxy. On colony worlds and space stations, aboard ships traveling between the stars, every human listened to their president's words. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Federation. All human citizens are ordered to return to human space within 6 months. All human businesses and organizations will cease operations in Federation territory. All treaties and agreements between Earth and Federation members are hereby dissolved. President Hayes took a deep breath. "We will not beg for respect. We will not wait for permission to be treated as equals. We will make our own way among the stars." The plan was called Operation Exodus, and it was breathtaking in its scope. Every human in Federation space, nearly 50 million people, would be evacuated. The entire human economy would be withdrawn from galactic trade. Earth would become completely isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the battleship Constitution, watching the evacuation fleets depart for human space. The operation required every ship in the human fleet, and dozens of hastily converted cargo vessels. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "the Zealoty government is requesting permission to send observers to monitor the evacuation." Admiral Parker's expression didn't change. "Denied. Tell them that Federation citizens are no longer welcome in human space." "Sir, they're claiming it's for humanitarian purposes." "Then they should have thought about humanitarian purposes when they were treating us like second-class citizens for the past 2 centuries. The evacuation moved like clockwork. Human military efficiency had always impressed their alien allies, but now they were seeing it used against them. Every human family, every business, every piece of equipment, everything was cataloged, packed and shipped to human space. The Federation governments began to realize that something was seriously wrong. On the Vorthak homeworld, the collectives ruling council met in emergency session. The loss of human technology and expertise was already causing problems. The fusion reactors on Gamma Centauri are failing, reported the chief engineer. The human technicians who maintain them are gone. We don't understand their technology well enough to keep them running. What about the agricultural programs on the outer colonies? Asked another council member, also failing. The human agricultural specialists developed crop rotation systems that increased yields by 300%. Without them, we're facing food shortages. The situation was the same throughout Federation space. Humans hadn't just been workers or traders, they had been the backbone of dozens of critical systems. Their disappearance was leaving gaps that no one else could fill on Unity Prime Station. High Counselor Zethkari paced in his private chambers. Reports kept coming in from across the galaxy, human businesses shutting down. Human researchers leaving human-designed systems failing without maintenance. How many humans are left in Federation space? He asked his aide. Fewer than 5 million, sir. And they're all scheduled to leave within the next 2 months. Zethkari's crystalline form flickered with frustrated energy. This is ridiculous. They're acting like children having a tantrum. Sir, our intelligence services are reporting strange activities in human space. Long-range sensors are detecting massive construction projects. Energy signatures suggest industrial efforts on a scale we've never seen before. Construction projects? Yes, sir. Whatever they're building, it's enormous. And they're building it fast. Meanwhile, at the edge of Federation space, the last human evacuation fleets were preparing to depart. Dr. Richard Stone stood on the bridge of the research vessel Endeavour, watching the final shuttles dock with his ship. His team had spent 10 years studying ancient alien artifacts on the rim worlds. Now they were abandoning everything. Captain, his science officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the Federation Council. They're offering us full research grants if we stay. Stone laughed bitterly. Tell them we're not interested. So they're also offering human scientists full citizenship in any Federation member species of our choice. Same answer. We're going home. The Endeavour was the last human ship to leave Federation space. As it crossed the boundary into human territory, Stone opened a channel to broadcast on all Federation frequencies. This is Captain Richard Stone of the Earth vessel Endeavour. I am transmitting Earth's final message to the Galactic Federation. Earth hereby severs all diplomatic, economic, and military ties with the Federation and its member species. Any Federation vessel entering human space will be considered an act of war. He paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so welcoming. You had your chance to treat us as equals. You chose not to live with the consequences. The transmission ended, and the Endeavour disappeared into the darkness of human space. Behind it, the galaxy began to realize what it had lost. The humans were gone and they weren't coming back. On Federation worlds, the first shortages began to appear. The exotic spices that had made alien cuisine so popular were no longer available. The advanced medical equipment that had saved countless lives was breaking down without human maintenance. The entertainment systems that had brought joy to billions of beings went dark, but the worst was yet to come. The Federation had grown dependent on human expertise in ways they had never realized. And now, for the first time in 2 centuries, they would have to face the galaxy's dangers without humanity's help. The withdrawal was complete. Earth had kept its word. They had walked away, taking everything they had contributed to galactic civilization with them. Now the galaxy would learn the true cost of their arrogance. 3 years had passed since the last human ship left Federation space. The galaxy had learned to live without humanity, or so the Federation leaders told themselves. But deep in the outer rim, something was stirring that would test that belief. General Yethmer of the Zelathi Imperial Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing confidence. The Devak swarm had emerged from the galactic rim 6 months ago, attacking outer colonies with their bioships and living weapons. The Federation had finally mobilized its forces to stop them. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the swarm fleet is moving into attack position. Estimated enemy strength is 200 bioships," Yethmor nodded calmly. His fleet contained 300 vessels from 12 different species. The Federation's military might was finally working together as it should. "All ships, implement battle formation Gamma 7. We'll show these creatures what happens when they challenge civilized space." The battle began with the Federation's standard opening move. Energy weapons blazed across space, striking the organic hulls of the Devek ships. The bioships writhed and twisted, but they didn't die. Instead, they began to change, their living hulls adapting to the energy patterns. "Sir, our weapons are having minimal effect," the tactical officer reported, worry creeping into his voice. "Impossible," Yethmor said. "Increase power to all weapons. Focus fire on their lead ships." But the Devek had already adapted. Their bioships sprouted new weapons, firing streams of living acid that ate through Federation shields like they were made of paper. Worse, the creatures seemed to learn from each attack, changing their tactics with frightening speed. Within 2 hours, the Federation fleet was in retreat. 70 ships had been destroyed, and the survivors were barely holding together. General Yethmor watched in horror as his flagship's shields failed and acid began eating through the hull. "All ships, fall back to the inner colonies," he ordered. "Send a priority message to the High Council. We need reinforcements, but reinforcements wouldn't help." The Devek swarm had something the Federation had never faced before: the ability to adapt and evolve in real time. Every Federation tactic was met with a counter-adaptation. Every weapon was neutralized within hours of being used. On the Zelethi homeworld, High Counselor Zethkari sat in his private study, reading battle reports with growing dread. His crystalline form had lost much of its usual brilliance, dimmed by 3 years of problems that seemed to grow worse each day. "Sir," his aide entered quietly, "we've received another request for aid from the outer colonies. The Devak have taken 17 systems in the past month." Zethkari set down the reports and turned to look out the window at his world's crystal cities. "What do our military advisors recommend?" "They suggest we try the Korathian battle formations from the Third Rim War, or perhaps the Vorthak defensive strategies. And what do you think of those suggestions?" The aide hesitated. "Sir, with respect, we've tried variations of both. The Devak adapt to everything we throw at them. We need something new, something they haven't seen before." Zethkari was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "Contact the military archives. Find the reports from the Sigma Karini pirate campaigns." "The ones where human Admiral Clark was the tactical advisor?" "Sir, those are 3 years old. And the human tactics were deemed too aggressive by the High Command." "Too aggressive," Zethkari repeated bitterly. "Find them anyway." The aide left, and Zethkari continued staring out at his world. He remembered reading those reports when they first came in. Admiral Susan Clark had proposed joint training exercises with Federation fleets. She had warned about the dangers of rigid military thinking. She had even submitted detailed analyses of potential threats from the Galactic Rim. The High Council had rejected every proposal. Human military doctrine was too chaotic, too unpredictable. It went against thousands of years of proven Federation tactics. Now those proven tactics were failing, and the humans were gone. The economic situation was just as bad. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were breaking down. The complex logistics networks that human companies had built were collapsing under Federation bureaucracy. On the industrial world of Gamma Centauri, Vorthak engineer Kethmor stood before a massive fusion reactor that had been built by human technicians. The reactor had powered the planet's manufacturing centers for 15 years, but now it was slowly dying. "Can we fix it?" asked the plant supervisor. Kethmar's mechanical limbs clicked nervously. "We've tried everything. The human design is too advanced for our current technology. We can keep it running for maybe another year, but after that, After that, we shut down the manufacturing centers. And without those centers, we can't produce the weapons and supplies our fleets need." The Supervisor was right. Gamma Centauri wasn't the only world facing this problem. Human-designed systems were failing throughout Federation space, and no one else had the knowledge to maintain them. On Nexus Station, Merchant Prince Kethvin walked through his empty warehouses. The exotic goods that had made him rich were gone. The entertainment systems that had brought joy to billions of beings were no longer available. The medical supplies that had saved countless lives were running out. "Sir," his assistant buzzed, "the Phylorian delegation is here. They want to discuss purchasing our remaining stock of earth spices." Kethvin laughed bitterly. "Tell them we sold the last of it 6 months ago. And there won't be any more. They're offering 3 times the usual price." "They could offer 300 times the usual price. We don't have any to sell." The Federation's intelligence services were reporting even more disturbing news. Long-range sensors at the edge of human space were detecting massive energy signatures. Whatever humanity was building in their isolated territory, it was on a scale that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever constructed. "Sir," the intelligence chief reported to the High Council, "our deep space monitoring stations are picking up industrial activity in the Sol system. The energy output suggests construction projects of unprecedented scale." "What kind of construction?" asked the Vorthak. Representative, "Unknown, sir. But the power requirements are enormous. They're building something that requires more energy than entire star systems normally produce." High Counselor Zethkari felt a chill run through his crystalline form. "Military installations?" "Possibly, sir, or industrial complexes. Or both. We simply don't know." The Federation tried to get more information, but human space was completely sealed off. Any probe that entered the outer edge of the Sol system simply disappeared. No signals came out, no ships went in. Meanwhile, other threats were emerging to take advantage of Federation weakness. The Sigma Carini pirates, who had been quiet for years, began launching bold raids on core worlds. The ancient precursor installations that humanity had helped maintain began shutting down, their secrets lost without human expertise. On the rim world of Kepler 7, the precursor data vault went dark after operating for 10,000 years. The vault had contained the accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. Human archaeologists had spent decades learning to interface with the ancient technology. Dr. Zethkala, the Zalathi archaeologist who had worked with the human team, stood before the silent vault. "Can we restart it?" His assistant, a young Vorthic researcher, shook his head. "The activation sequence requires 17 different harmonic frequencies played in perfect synchronization. The human team took 5 years to figure out the pattern. And without them, it could take us centuries to rediscover the process. If we ever do, the vault's knowledge was lost, possibly forever. And it was just one of dozens of similar failures throughout Federation space, but the worst was yet to come. The Divek swarm had learned to split into smaller groups, spreading their attacks across multiple systems. Federation fleets couldn't be everywhere at once, and the creatures were adapting faster than the military could respond. On the colony world of New Rigel, Governor Lethkara watched the evacuation ships depart. The Devok bioships were only hours away, and the Federation fleet couldn't arrive in time to help. "Sir," her aide reported, "the last transport is away. The planet is clear." Lethkara nodded sadly. New Rigel had been a thriving world with 12 million inhabitants. Now it was another empty husk, abandoned to the swarm. As the governor's ship lifted off, she looked back at the cities her people had built. Soon, the Devok would arrive and consume everything, turning the planet into another breeding ground for their living ships. The Federation was losing the war, and everyone knew it. The rigid military tactics that had worked for thousands of years were useless against an enemy that adapted and evolved. The economic systems that had created galactic prosperity were breaking down without human expertise, and somewhere in the darkness beyond Federation space, humanity was building something that no one understood. The species that had once begged for acceptance was now completely independent, growing stronger while the galaxy grew weaker. High Counselor Zethkari stood in his chambers, looking at the star charts that showed the Federation's shrinking territory. Red markers showed systems lost to the Devek, yellow markers showed worlds facing economic collapse, green markers showed the few remaining stable systems. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Federation. Ambassador Lefkari stood on the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, staring at the edge of human space. The young Zelathi had been chosen for this mission because he was the nephew of High Counselor Zethkari and because he had actually worked with humans before the withdrawal. "Sir, we're approaching the heliopause of the Sol system," reported his ship's captain. "Should we broadcast our diplomatic credentials?" Lethkari nodded nervously. His crystalline form flickered with anxiety as he prepared the message that might save the Federation. "This is Ambassador Lethkari of the Zelathi Empire, speaking for the Galactic Federation. We request an audience with Earth's government to discuss renewed diplomatic relations." The response came faster than expected. A sleek ship materialized out of nowhere, moving at speeds that made Lethkari's escort vessels look like they were standing still. The newcomer was clearly human in design, but it looked nothing like the ships he remembered from 5 years ago. "Federation vessels, this is Captain Peter Kim of the Earth Defense Force destroyer Defiant. You have entered restricted space. You have 10 minutes to reverse course and leave this system." Lethkari quickly opened a channel. "Captain Kim, I am here on a diplomatic mission of the utmost importance. The galaxy faces a crisis that threatens all civilized species. We need humanity's help. The Federation had 2 centuries to work with. Humanity, Ambassador, you chose a different path. 9 minutes remaining." "Captain, please," Lethkari pleaded. "Millions of beings have died. Entire worlds have fallen to the Devik swarm. Surely we can reach some agreement." Captain Kim's voice was ice-cold. "The Federation made it clear that the galaxy managed quite well without humanity for millions of years. You said it would continue to do so. 8 minutes remaining." Lethkari felt panic rising in his chest. "We were wrong, we admit that. We're prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Federation, with unprecedented privileges. Equal voting rights, unlimited trade access, military command positions. 7 minutes. The ambassador looked around desperately at his crew. They were all staring at him, hoping he could somehow convince the humans to help. But Captain Kim's voice showed no emotion, no flexibility, no hope. "Captain, I'm begging you. Let me speak to someone in authority. Let me explain the situation." "I am the authority here, Ambassador. This is human space and you are not welcome. 6 minutes. Lethkari's sensors were picking up something impossible. The destroyer Defiant was not only moving faster than any ship should be able to move, but its energy readings were off the charts. The weapon systems alone generated more power than most Federation battleships. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "that ship could destroy our entire fleet without breaking speed." Lethkari knew it was over. "All ships, reverse course. We're leaving." As the Federation fleet turned away, Captain Kim's final message followed them. "Tell your leaders that humanity has no interest in cleaning up the mess you made. You wanted independence from human interference. You have it." The ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Federation delegation alone at the edge of human space. As they traveled back toward Federation territory, Lethkari wondered what he would tell the High Council. How could he explain that humanity wasn't just refusing to help, but had become something beyond the Federation's understanding? Deep within human space, the truth was even more remarkable than Lethkari could have imagined. Dr. Helen Roberts stood in the control center of the solar defense grid, watching displays that showed the most ambitious construction project in galactic history. The grid consisted of thousands of automated defense platforms spread throughout the solar system and beyond. Each platform was equipped with weapons and sensors that made Federation technology look primitive. But the defense grid was just the beginning. "Status report," Dr. Roberts requested. "All platforms are online and functioning within normal parameters," reported her assistant, Engineer Tony Martinez. "Long-range sensors show no hostile activity within 50 light-years." "What about the jump gate network?" Phase 1 is complete. We now have instant travel connections to all 17 colony systems. Phase 2 construction is ahead of schedule. Dr. Roberts nodded with satisfaction. The jump gate technology made traditional faster-than-light travel look like walking? Human ships could now move between star systems instantly, without the weeks or months required by Federation vessels. But the most impressive achievement was invisible to outside observers. Humanity had made contact with species beyond the galactic rim, the same region where the Devok swarm had originated. These new allies had technology and knowledge that the Federation had never imagined. Dr. Roberts, Tony said quietly, we're receiving another transmission from Federation space. The Devok have taken the Vorthik homeworld. Dr. Roberts felt a moment of sadness for the beings who were suffering. But she pushed it aside, not our problem anymore. The transformation of human civilization had been complete and breathtaking. With all human resources focused on their own development instead of Federation obligations, progress had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. New colonies had been established in previously unknown star systems. Industrial capacity had grown exponentially. Scientific discoveries were being made at a pace that would have been impossible under Federation restrictions. President Hayes, now in his second term, addressed the citizens of human space from his office on the orbital city above Earth. My fellow humans, 5 years ago, we made the difficult decision to leave the Galactic Federation. Today, I can report that decision has proven to be the best choice in human history. The broadcast reached every human world instantly through the quantum communication network. Our population has grown to over 200 million. Our territory now includes 47 star systems. Our technology has advanced more in 5 years than in the previous 50. Hayes paused, looking directly into the camera. The Federation continues to request our assistance with their various crises. They offer us membership, trading rights, and military partnerships. To all such offers, our answer remains the same. We are no longer interested in their approval or their problems. The President's words were being monitored by Federation intelligence services, but they could only pick up fragments of the transmission. Human communication technology had advanced beyond their ability to intercept. On the war front, the situation for the Federation continued to deteriorate. The Devok swarm had evolved beyond everyone's worst fears. They now controlled over 60 star systems and showed no signs of slowing down. Worse, other threats were emerging to take advantage of Federation weakness. General Yethmar, now missing his right arm from a Devok acid attack, stood before the Federation War Council. The situation is desperate, he reported. We've lost contact with 3 more core worlds. The swarm's new bioships can travel faster than our fastest vessels. What about the outer defenses? Asked a Vorthik counselor. Overrun. The creatures adapt to our defenses faster than we can deploy them. They're learning from every encounter, becoming stronger and smarter. High Counselor Zefkari looked around the war room at the grim faces of his colleagues. How long until they reach the inner systems? 6 months, maybe less. The silence that followed was deafening. The greatest military alliance in galactic history was facing complete defeat at the hands of creatures they had initially dismissed as a minor threat. Sir, a young aide entered the room. We've received intelligence reports from the rim worlds. The humans are active in that sector. Everyone turned to look at the aide. What kind of activity? Unknown, sir. But there are reports of human ships engaging unknown vessels near the galactic edge. The energy signatures are enormous. Zethkari felt a chill. Are they fighting the Devok? We don't know, sir. Our sensors can't penetrate that deep into human space. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of Gamma Centauri, the last fusion reactor finally shut down. Engineer Kethmore watched the power levels drop to 0, knowing that the planet's manufacturing capability was now gone forever. Sir, his assistant said, the evacuation ships are ready. Kethmore nodded sadly. Another world. Lost, not to enemy action, but to their own technological dependence on humanity. Without the advanced systems that humans had built and maintained, entire planets were becoming uninhabitable. the economic collapse was accelerating. Trade routes that had operated for millennia were shutting down. The entertainment industry that had brought joy to billions was dark. Medical research that had promised cures for ancient diseases had stopped, but perhaps worst of all were the precursor sites. Ancient installations built by vanished civilizations were going offline one by one. The knowledge and technology they contained, accumulated over millions of years, was being lost forever. Dr. Zethkala stood before the dead ruins of what had once been the galaxy's greatest archaeological treasure. The Kepler-7 data vault had contained the complete historical records of 17 extinct civilizations. Now it was just another pile of silent metal. 30,000 years of history, she whispered to her assistant. Gone because we drove away the only people who understood how to maintain it. As the Federation's crisis deepened, humanity continued to grow stronger in isolation. 10 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Federation. High Counselor Zethkari stood in his command bunker, deep beneath the surface of the Zeliphi homeworld, watching the displays that showed the end of everything he had known. The Devak swarm had evolved beyond all recognition. What had started as simple bioships had become something nightmarish. The creatures now controlled over 300 star systems and were moving toward the Federation's core worlds with unstoppable momentum. Sir, his military aide reported, the outer defense line has collapsed. The swarm will reach the inner systems within days. Zethkari's crystalline form had lost all its brightness. 10 years of war had aged him beyond his natural lifespan. How many ships do we have left? Fewer than 1,000 across all Federation fleets. The swarm has over 50,000 bioships, and they're still growing. The numbers were impossible. The greatest military alliance in galactic history had been reduced to hiding in bunkers, waiting for the end. The creatures had adapted to every weapon, every tactic, every defense the Federation could deploy. Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Emergency Council. Zethkari knew what the message would contain before he heard it. The Federation Council had voted to do something that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. They were going to beg. The broadcast went out on all known frequencies, transmitted toward the edge of human space with maximum power. It was signed by every surviving member of the Federation Council, a formal apology and plea for help. To the government and people of Earth, the message began. The Galactic Federation formally apologizes for our treatment of humanity over the past 2 centuries. We acknowledge that we were wrong to deny you equal status and respect. We humbly request your assistance in defending galactic civilization from the Devak threat. The message offered everything the Federation had once refused to give. Full membership with unlimited voting rights. Complete control over human territory without Federation interference. Leadership positions in all major Federation institutions. Even reparations for the economic losses caused by human withdrawal. For 3 days there was no response. Then a single transmission came from human space, broadcast on the same frequencies the Federation had used. The voice belonged to Admiral Karen Bell, commander of the Solar Defense Fleet. Her words were calm and measured, without emotion or anger. The Galactic Federation had 2 centuries to work with humanity as equals. You chose to treat us as children. You chose to mock our contributions. You chose to deny us the respect that every other species received automatically. The transmission continued, reaching every corner of Federation space. You told us that the galaxy managed without us for millions of years and would continue to do so. We took your advice. The galaxy is no longer our concern. The message ended with a simple statement that crushed the last hope of billions of beings. We wish you success in resolving your current difficulties. The Federation leaders sat in stunned silence. After everything they had offered, humanity's answer was still no. The species they had dismissed as impatient children had grown beyond their reach and chosen to let them face extinction alone, but the Devak swarm wasn't finished. As Federation defenses crumbled, millions of civilian ships fled toward the galactic core. Families, children, elderly beings who had never made the decisions that led to this disaster, all of them running for their lives, some of the refugee fleets desperate for any hope of survival, turned toward human space. They had nowhere else to go. The core worlds were already overcrowded, and the swarm was moving faster than the evacuation ships. Captain Jenny Adams stood on the bridge of the patrol ship Vigilant, watching her sensors as a massive refugee convoy approached the edge of human space. 3 million beings aboard thousands of ships, fleeing the destruction of their worlds. Captain, her communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Clark, reported, the lead ship is requesting permission to enter human space. They're asking for a safe passage to the core worlds. Captain Adams studied the tactical display. These weren't politicians or military leaders. These were families with children, elderly beings who had spent their lives in peaceful occupations. Young people who had never even heard of humanity until their worlds started burning. Open a channel to the refugee fleet, she ordered. The response came from Admiral Bell herself, speaking from the command center of the Solar Defense Grid. Refugee vessels, this is Admiral Karen Bell of the Human Solar Defense Force, UR. Authorized to transit through human space to reach the galactic core. We will provide safe passage, supplies, and medical assistance as needed. The relief in the refugee fleet's response was overwhelming. Voices from dozens of species, speaking in hundreds of languages, all expressing gratitude for humanity's mercy. But Admiral Bell wasn't finished. However, understand this clearly. We do this not for the Federation that rejected us, but for the innocent beings who had no part in those decisions. The Federation made its choice. These are the consequences. As the refugee fleet passed through human space, they witnessed something that left them speechless. The humans had built a civilization that dwarfed anything in Federation space, orbital cities that housed millions of people, industrial complexes that could have supplied the entire galaxy, defensive installations that made Federation military. Bases looked like children's toys, but most impressive were the ships. Human vessels moved through space with impossible grace and speed. Their designs were unlike anything in Federation databases, clearly based on technology far beyond what the galaxy had known. Zeth Kalar, a young Zealothi engineer among the refugees, stared out his ship's viewport at a human space station. How did they advance so quickly? He asked his companion. An older Vorthix scientist answered quietly. They were always this capable. We just never let them show it. The refugee convoy was met by human escort ships that guided them safely through the defensive grid. The humans provided food, medical care, and supplies without asking for anything in return. But they also made it clear that this was a one-time mercy, not the beginning of renewed relations. As the last refugee ship crossed into the galactic core, humanity sealed its borders once again. The message was clear: they would help the innocent, but they would not save the Federation from its own mistakes. Meanwhile, the Devik swarm continued its advance. The creatures had learned to split into smaller fleets, hitting dozens of targets simultaneously. No Federation force could be everywhere at once, and the aliens' rigid command structure couldn't adapt to the chaos on the Vorthak homeworld. The last government officials boarded evacuation ships as bioships darkened the sky. The planet that had once been the technological heart of the Federation was about to become another breeding ground for the swarm. High Counselor Zethkari found himself aboard a refugee ship, fleeing the destruction of his own world. The crystalline cities he had known since childhood were being consumed by living acid, dissolved to feed the swarm's endless hunger. As his ship escaped the planet's gravity well, he saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. A single human vessel, sleek and powerful, was engaging a group of Devik bioships near the system's edge. The human ship moved like a dancer, destroying the creatures with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. "Why are they here?" Zethkari asked the ship's captain. "Unknown, sir. Human ships have been spotted throughout the rim sectors, but they don't communicate with our forces." Zethkari watched as the human ship finished destroying the bioships and disappeared into hyperspace. They weren't fighting to save the Federation. They were protecting something else, something beyond the galaxy's edge that the Federation had never known existed. The truth was more remarkable than any Federation leader could have imagined. Humanity had made contact with the ancients, the precursor species that had built the installations now failing throughout Federation space. The Devek swarm wasn't just a random invasion. It was a test, a challenge that every species eventually faced. Most species failed the test and were consumed. But some, like humanity, proved themselves worthy of joining the galactic community that existed beyond the rim. The Federation had been nothing more than a nursery, a place for young species to grow until they were ready for the real challenges of existence. Humanity had passed the test. They had proven their independence, their capability, and their wisdom. Now they stood guard at the galaxy's edge, protecting the real civilization that lay beyond. The Federation's refugees settled in the core worlds, building new lives from the ashes of their old ones. Some of them, the younger ones especially, began to understand what they had lost when they drove humanity away. Seth Kalar, the young Zealothi engineer, spent his days studying human technology from the refugee convoy's recordings. "We could have been partners with them," he told his friends. "We could have learned from them instead of dismissing them." But it was too late for regrets. The galaxy had made its choice, and humanity had made theirs. The Federation was gone, consumed by its own arrogance and the enemies it couldn't defeat. In the end, the species that had once begged for acceptance had found something far more valuable. They had found the strength to walk away from those who didn't appreciate them.